And we welcome back to the program Seth Weisel of Galaxy Brewing Company here in Binghamton. You're a co-owner with your dad, right?
That's correct, and we also have a new investor, which is allowing us to do some very exciting things in 2019.
Well, that's good. I don't know much about business, and I certainly don't know much about running a craft brewing outfit. The only thing that I can discern as an outsider looking in is no matter what you're attempting to do, whether you're doing it on your own, as you started with yourself and your dad, or now with an additional investor, money is critical. I mean, to be able to develop your plans and make your dream come true. In fact, it probably, I think probably for anybody's dream of operating any type of small business, it probably takes more money and also more sweat equity than you'd ever imagine to get things off the ground and turn things into a success.
I'd say that's about a correct statement. And, I feel like Galaxy's been pretty successful, and, we've been selling a lot of beer. We've been at capacity for about 3 years, but we did need just a little bit of help to expand our capacity, and that's what we have going on right now, which is so exciting.
Your additional investor, is this a local person?
Yes, more or less. He is involved in the community. I'm not at liberty to say exactly who he is, but he's definitely helping us, and he's helped other people locally. So.
Has he been familiar with your enterprise from its inception?
Not from the inception, but he is excited about what we've been doing, and actually, to quote him, he said, I see your vision, and that's very exciting from our point of view, because he seems to understand, what it is that we want to do and where we want to go.
And we, on more than one occasion, when you've been here, we've talked about your vision. I mean, this was something that you had been dreaming of for a long time, to be able to do this sort of thing here in Binghamton. It took a lot of effort to get the operation off the ground, and here you are. What is it now? Is it 5.5 or 6 years later?
Yeah, we're going on 6 years. It'll be 6 years at the end of August.
What was it like when you saw the first can of Galaxy-produced beer in a store, say at Wegmans or some other retail outlet around here? What impact did that have on you and your dad to see something that had been actually produced here in Binghamton out available in other retail outlets beyond the facility you opened on Court Street?
Well, I definitely got some warm and fuzzies, if you will. I've seen it in not only just in our local Wegmans, but local Weiss and Wegmans out in Rochester and Syracuse. I'm told it's even out in Buffalo and beyond.
Well, it's interesting because with the success you've had with Andromeda, the IPA, both in canning and also distribution throughout much of New York State at various establishments. I mean, even around here, my observation is it's quite impressive, even for places that don't specialize in craft beer. If they have one craft offering, very often it's your Andromeda. And tell me a little bit about how you've managed to make that happen, because my thought is that it must be tough when you're dealing with a lot of restaurant operators who are small business people in their own right, and they already have their hands full just running the restaurant aspect, and then you come into them and say, hey, craft beer is getting bigger, and yet they also have to allocate space, a tap for your beer versus the big boys. I mean, tell me how you've been successful in getting this product out there over the last few years in places that typically had never sold craft beer before.
Well, I'm going to have to give a lot of credit to our local distributor, A.L. George. They're doing a really great job, especially with our Andromeda label, and you know, so they're doing a great job helping us sell the beer, and you know, I think you touched on it before, though, because I think people are starting to open up and get a sort of more of a local pride. You know, this is local beer. You know, when I buy an Andromeda, this money is staying. You know, it's staying here in our community, and it's helping our community as opposed to, you know, getting shuttled off to St. Louis or South Africa or, you know, Brazil or wherever.
Even,
wherever.
I mean, that's another thing too. I mean, with the dramatic changes that have happened within the industry over the last decade, such astonishing consolidation with almost all the well-known brands now under control of two really big companies. And the reality is, from everything I've read, those are companies that play hardball. It's not easy for craft brewers, whether they're in Binghamton or Buffalo or Birmingham. It's not easy for small upstarts to really compete with the big boys.
I would agree with that. It is a very much still a David and Goliath scenario where you've got the big guys who will do everything from really undercut your prices to they have these huge marketing budgets, so they can offer all these incentives. They'll, I've heard stories of them buying tap lines, which is technically illegal, but again, I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but I've heard those stories.
Yeah. Well, I think we've read about a lot of what the big companies have allegedly done around the country, and certainly some has been documented. In some cases, government regulators have been forced to step in because of some of the practices of the big companies and the way they work with big distributors that are critical. I mean, that's a lifeline, especially for an expanding business like what you have here. As you've mentioned, over the last few years, the amount of beer that's being produced in Binghamton has continued to grow, and you have managed to get your name out there in a growing circle of people. But if they can't obtain what you're producing in their hometown, then it doesn't do you any good.
Yeah, I mean, and not only that, I've heard stories recently of some of the big guys buying up all 100% of a certain type of hop. So kind of relatively recently, like the new South African hops have been pretty hot, and anytime you grow a hop in a new region, you can get some aspect of that, the local flavor. So you will get different hop varieties, and so some of these are exciting and new flavors. And there was a company that basically tried to buy up all of them so that none of the craft brewers could have it.
Well, it's a sad commentary. If they have deep pockets, that they could essentially have a monopoly on producing beers with that vital ingredient.
Yeah, they definitely have an advantage because of those deep pockets and their buying power. But craft is still growing, and there's still a lot of exciting things going on, despite the obstacles that we have to overcome as craft brewers.
And in fact, that's the only segment of the beer market that's been growing in recent years. That's why, if people paying attention have noticed, the big companies have been more and more attempting to gobble up some of the most successful craft brewers and put that in as part of their portfolio, because that's the only segment that's shown any any signs of real health over the last several years.
That is, a correct statement. And it's fun. I think people are, like I said before, really, starting to focus on local, and the idea of local, the concept of local is shrinking, which in some ways is really good, and exciting, because everyone's gonna have their local brewery.
Talking with Seth Weisel of Galaxy Brewing here in downtown Binghamton. So in December, some people were stunned and maybe confused by some of the news they heard about what Galaxy Brewing was doing, especially for people who had gotten acclimated to the restaurant part of your business here on Court Street. You made a decision about the future of the company, and initially with the announcement, there may have been some concern about what is going to happen with Galaxy Brewing. Tell us about the factors that came into play late last year as Galaxy Brewing was developing its strategy for the future.
Well, we were looking at everything that we had been doing, and you're absolutely right. There has been a lot of confusion, which is, I guess, thank you for giving me the opportunity to kind of clear some of this up. We look closely at the brewery and the restaurant, and we determined that we basically just, we determined that I admit we were not the best restaurateurs. So we did not have a profitable restaurant.
Do you think you were spreading yourself too thin by of course, having the craft brewing operation, but also attempting to have a relatively high-end type dining experience downtown? Was that attempting to pull off too much simultaneously?
That may have been part of it. I have a lot of respect for successful restaurateurs. It is a very difficult business to be in. The margins are very slim to begin with, and I can certainly say that my attention was on the craft beer side of things, and that perhaps I should have paid a little more attention to the restaurant side of things, but I knew where I could make money and produce a good product that I was proud of, and so I really focused on the side of beer, and the beer has been successful, and now we have an opportunity to do even more creative things, more fun beers, get a little wild and crazy, if you will, and not only that, but we've been at capacity for almost 3 years now, and so we've not been able to supply everyone that's wanted our beer. So now we're able to supply. We will be able to supply everyone, and hopefully even grow our footprint.
So the restaurant closed at the end of December. So just over a month ago, the restaurant on Court Street was closed down, but you're still operating a tasting room at the site at 41 Court Street.
Absolutely. The tasting room is still there and going strong. We do recognize that people do want food, and when we have some snacks at the bar and that kind of thing that you're welcome to have, but people are also welcome to enjoy food from outside our establishment and bring it in. There's a lot of great food in the area. There's excellent Indian food right next door, excellent pizza right next door. There's Chinese food across the street, Subway not too far away. There's lots of food options in downtown Binghamton, and we're proud to to be supplying a nice libation, and anyone that wants to bring in any food from outside, you can bring a bag lunch in if you want.
Where do things stand now as far as looking at options for a bigger production site as Galaxy moves forward and focuses on beer and growing the production side of things?
Well, we are looking. We have a space. We've nailed down a space here locally. I can say that it is in Binghamton. The really nice thing is that there's a lot of space and there's a parking lot, so it will be accessible to a lot more people, I think.
So you could also have a tasting room at that new Binghamton site in addition to more production space.
Exactly. We will have a tasting room at the new space, and we're going to go with the food truck model, and we're going to have some food trucks right there. That way you don't have to worry about bringing your own food in. It'll be right there. It just won't be run by Galaxy. We're going to be focusing on the beer and the tasting room experience.
How soon do you expect to make a public announcement about your new site?
I'm not sure when I can make the actual site location public knowledge, but I'll be possibly having that discussion later this evening. But like I said, it is in Binghamton, and there's I see a lot of positive things for this. We are going to be able to not only make a lot more production beer, but our latest discussions have been, well, we're going to move our small system over there too. So we can not only do, large production style things, but we can also, maintain our small, more boutique-y, unique type brands, and just always have something new and fun. So,
how important is it to Galaxy Brewing to stay in the city of Binghamton in terms of just the beer that you make? I've heard people say that there's one specific reason why you're trying to stay in Binghamton, and that actually has to do with the water. Is that true?
We do very much like the water here in Binghamton. We also love the people, and we want to stay local and support this community. But there is some truth in that statement, and we found that the brewing water here in Binghamton is very good. All we have to do is run it through a sediment filter and then charcoal filter it to pull out the chlorine, and our water is ready to go. We don't have to buy an expensive reverse osmosis system like a lot of places do, just simply because they're either their groundwater or their wherever they're pulling their water from has issues. We have really clean, good water here in Binghamton.
In terms of the new production going forward, are you going to actually develop a canning line so you can move away from the model that I believe you've been using with a mobile canning company? I don't know if you still are all the time, but is an actual canning line in the works for Galaxy Brewing?
An actual canning line is in the works. So that's exciting too, because that's going to allow us to, have a lot more flexibility, have a lot more beer releases, smaller beer release runs, and larger beer release runs. The company that we use is called Ironheart, and they're really great. They're doing a great job for us. We're really proud to be working with them, and they've helped us out a lot in a lot of ways. And I do have a contract with them for about the next year to go through all the cans that they've helped us with.
Well, that's another thing too.
We'll be continuing that relationship, and then once everything is up and running in the new facility, we'll we'll have our that flexibility to do whatever we want, whenever we want.
Well, it's exciting, I imagine, for you and for everybody else involved to be moving forward in that direction. And I'm thinking that will essentially represent the next significant chapter then for Galaxy Brewing as you continue to move forward and approach your 6th anniversary.
Yeah, that's it's super exciting because we get to have even more fun now. I love Andromeda. That was the beer that I designed for me to drink on a regular basis. It's I really love that beer, but it became a bit of a its success almost became a bit of a double-edged sword because that was the beer that also kept the lights on, if you will. So we had to really make sure that we were, supplying Andromeda, and I felt like it did limit what other things we could do for a little bit. But now that we're expanding, it's, the roof is blown off, where the sky's the limit.